Distribution provided by Cloud Sigma, the cloud that adapts to you. Visit cloudsigma.com/thisweekend for a free $200 credit.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis. This is This Week in Startups. Today on the program, Rap Genius, the Y Combinator startup from 2011 that raised $15 million in their A round, over 10 million unique visitors. Mark Andreessen from Andreessen Horowitz has invested. We're going to find out how they did so much with so little and in such little amount of time. It's going to be an amazing episode. Stick with us. I have to thank my friend Scott Walker. Scott Walker is an old friend of mine, and he has a boutique law firm that is specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs. And his lawyers all have 10 to 20 years experience, some of them at those very big firms that charge very big fees. And there's no junior associates who are going to take your account. It's only going to be these great 10, 20-year attorneys who have tons of experience working specifically with startups. And he is a boutique firm, so they're going to save you money, and they encourage what's called fixed fees. In other words, if you're raising an angel round, if you're raising an A round, if you're doing a merger or acquisition, or you're being bought, he'll give you a fixed fee. He'll say, we'll do it for this amount of money. If we go a little bit over, that's okay. I'm not going to be watching the clock and just try to absolutely slaughter you with legal expenses. And let me tell you something. I've been a founder for 20 years, and I have that moment of absolute terror when I open my lawyer bill. And it is going away if you use Walker Corporate Law. And thank you to Scott Walker for being a friend to startups. I know a lot of people like Tyler who use him as an attorney, and they love him. They speak very highly of him. He's got a great client list. 310-288-6667. That number again? 310-288-6667. WalkerCorporateLaw.com. Call Scott Walker directly. He's a real mensch, a good friend of mine. I highly recommend him, and I want to take a personal minute here to thank him for letting me do the Startup of the Week edition, which I wouldn't be able to do if Scott wasn't sponsoring the program. It takes real money to do a production of this value with producers and technology and editors and everything. And boy, I couldn't do it without the support of great people like Scott Walker. Go ahead and thank at Scott Ed Walker, Scott Ed E.D. Walker on his Twitter account for sponsoring independent media like This Week in Startups. Hey everybody, this is This Week in Startups. Today with me is Tom Lehman, the co-founder of Rap Genius, which is a Y Combinator 2011 startup.
That's right.
And since that time, you guys have grown to 10 million uniques and a $15 million A round. So we want to talk about that today. But let's talk about the origin story. How did you start Rap Genius? Why did you start Rap Genius? Sure.
So, Rap Genius was a sort of like outgrowth of just conversations that I was having with a couple of my closest friends and roommates. So it was Mahmoud Moghadam and Alonzo Gori, who are my co-founders. And at the time, we were living with one of our other friends, Ariel Schneller. And, I was kind of getting into rap for the first time. Like before then, I had been more just into like a pop and beat,
Mm-hmm.
And so like the lyricism of rap was not something that I had paid that much attention to, but living with these guys, they were obsessed and they got me obsessed. And so, we just spend, late nights like talking about like rap, and particularly our favorite rapper at the time, Cameron, just picking apart his lines and verses, and this is a reference to that, and this is a double on time. And so like, the idea just popped into my head, and then Mahmoud thought of the perfect name in the moment. He was like, perfect, we'll call it Rap Exegesis. Because we thought that was such like a cute little joke, because exegesis is this sort of like funny word that exactly describes what this is, like close reading, right. But it was also impossible to spell.
Exegesis.
Exegesis. See, it's
okay.
It's a terrible name.
Yeah.
But that was the original
name. This
name
is at Harvard, I take it?
Yale, actually.
At Yale.
Yeah.
This is what Yale kids do at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, basically.
Wow, you guys are huge nerds.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you decide to build a website. You get it going, it gets some traction, and then you apply to Y Combinator.
Oh my God! Well, there was we toiled in obscurity for a long time. So this was end of 2009, August 2009, and in the beginning it was just us on the site. Like right now, it's this whole Wikipedia thing, of course, but like in the beginning it was just us, and like we just put in a ton of work putting up songs. I was, of course, like iterating on the product.
It was just
so
a
forth.
wiki at the beginning.
No, it was a custom piece of software, but there was you had to like there weren't really like permissions. Like right now, it's like Samurai Japan. Like there are all these different levels of like. In the beginning, it was nothing and just our friends, and so. We toiled for 2009 and all of 2010, no traction really. And then late in 2010, like late summer 2010, we sort of opened it up and let anyone start contributing, like really got the Wikipedia aspect going. And then that sort of caused the content to really take off in terms of quantity and quality. And then that sort of gradually grew the traffic. And then so, beginning of 2011, we were looking pretty strong. And that's when we applied to Y Combinator. And that really made
How many uniques did you have when you applied to Y Combinator?
What did we have?
Couple mil?
I think we had, it was a couple of million. Yeah. It was like maybe $1.5 million. I remember because we had talked to a bunch of people about like web businesses, like running like a content business or whatever. And like we talked to this really smart girl, Elizabeth Spears, who now I think runs the New York. Yeah. Okay. So
she had done Gawker, was the original editor of Gawker, and I
yeah.
actually tried to hire her away from Nick Denton, but couldn't because she wanted to go to New York Magazine and be a magazine journalist.
There you go, exactly. And so we had talked to her to sort of get some advice, and we had talked to her, and she was like, look, if you can get to 1 million uniques, that's like a pretty good accomplishment. And we were like, all right, the Spears million, we got to hit the Spears million. And so that's what we were really thinking around this time. So I think we had just passed it maybe or whatever. So.
And so when you go into Y Combinator, you meet Paul Graham, and what do you say to get in?
Oh, my God.
What was that like?
Yeah, well, I mean, a big part of it is showing the graph, and, we had also sort of, there were some fans of the product who were in the Y Combinator Illuminati. So like Justin Can and Gary Tan were big fans of us and the product. And so, we emphasized the graph, we emphasized the growth. At that time we were thinking a little bit smaller. Like we were thinking like, look, like lyrics is an enormous opportunity. Like let's just take over lyrics on the internet with something that no one's ever seen before. And I still think that's true. Like lyrics is an enormous opportunity.
Yeah, Metro Lyrics and a lot of these lyric site, Lyric Wiki, I don't know, they got bought by Wikia or something, but they all have 5, 10, 15 million unique.
Yeah, I mean, lyrics is the number one search thing, besides like Facebook or whatever. So that's what we were really pitching to Paul Graham when, we really probably should have been pitching the sort of bigger angle. But it's just traction was the biggest thing that I think impressed Paul.
And what did you get out of Y Combinator? Because most people are coming in with just a team and maybe a prototype. You were coming in with, let's face it, an established business. I mean, you must have been making $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month.
Something like, no, $0 a month.
0.0?
0.0, exactly.
But you weren't trying.
We were not trying. We're still not trying. We're just focusing on like the growth of the thing and want to but yeah. So, I think Y Combinator has a lot to offer you if you have a lot of traction. Because I think that if you go into Y Combinator with traction, you can use that. I mean, it's great for Rap Genius, especially because Rap Genius started as a side project. So like we weren't like, all right, let's build a business explaining like, rap lyrics. It was just kind of a fun thing, right? And so getting into Y Combinator got us really thinking like, all right, let's really, really start trying really hard now, devote our whole lives to it. And, at the end, obviously, just like getting the Y Combinator, sort of investor hookup with something as like crazy as Rap Genius helps because it's like a little bit of a gradual pitch to an investor about like, look, like we know this sounds like crazy, but this is actually a really big idea. And so that really helped. And I think that like, if you have traction leaving Y Combinator, you can raise like a decent like chunk of seed money, and then that can really set you off for real. Whereas you don't have traction, it's going to be harder even with Y Combinator. And
you get the $200,000 or $300,000 from Yuri and SV Angel on the way out. You took that, I take it.
Oh my God, yeah. When we got money. That, we were like, "This is the last money we're raising. We don't need any money.
We don't ever need any more money." But then, sure enough, some period of time later, about a year later, you raised $15 million in an A round.
Yeah. Which
to me is insane. I mean, that means you raised at a $45 million post to give Andreessen Horowitz a third of the company. Right. That's usually A round is a third of the company, so I'm just doing some back of the envelope math there. That's a large amount of money for a company that had how many employees when you raised $15 million?
Oh my God! Let's see. We were, I believe, 9 at that point.
Yeah, so you raised $1.5 million per person.
Yep.
Or thereabouts. Why so much money? What was the thinking there? There must be some big plan. And you're now at 10 million uniques. It can't just be lyrics. What's the big plan?
Right. So the big plan is to annotate all of text. So like we have all this energy in lyrics, and I think that's going to be a big part of the future, especially growing into other genres. But like what we found was that people were just addicted to the way the platform worked as a way of just like adding more context and knowledge. So like people started putting up poems, literature, the Bible, and we saw this and we got excited about it, so we started encouraging it. And so the big vision is basically, as Ben Horowitz puts it, to become the internet Talmud. So like be the knowledge behind the knowledge, whether it's for rap music or the Bible or a poem. And so like, in the future, there are going to be kids in lecture halls across the country, and they're all going to be on Rap Genius or one of our other sites, and they're going to be, you're not going to be able to tell whether they're doing their homework or whether they're, just messing around or whatever. So it's just sort of taking on all of text. And then, even beyond that, you could imagine like a sort of image or video sort of annotation technology. And so that's sort of in the future as well.
Is this the greatest fair use hack, though? I mean, the lyric sites all got shut down and had to license lyrics appropriately. You don't have to do that because you're doing critical analysis, and it's protected under fair use. Did you discover the greatest hack in the history of copyright?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not really about.
It feels to me like you did.
It's not like a
It's a
trick,
loaded
really.
question.
Like, it's not. The idea isn't like, like we have your lyrics captive. Like the sort of idea is like, look, like whether it's lyrics or whether it's another piece of text that you wrote, like you are just not getting the maximum juice out of it unless you're on Rap Genius doing verified explanations, So like the people, like if you're a rap artist, for example, like the people who are listening to your lyrics are the people, and the people looking up your lyrics on Rap Genius are just your most obsessed fans. And
so that's why it's good for the copyright holder.
Yeah, so we think it's, it's just a way, makes the pie way bigger. Because it's not like people before this were like, oh my God, lyrics on the internet. Now that's a great thing that I want to keep rolling. Like lyrics on the internet were a little bit, ringtone-y, and so now we're trying to clean that up.
And pop-ups get the ringtone, pretty brutal. So you don't pay to license the lyrics?
No.
And have you had people ask to take lyrics down? And how do you address that?
Well, we have DMCA. It's a user-generated site, and we occasionally get a DMCA takedown. It's funny. There's a German copyright holder who keeps submitting DMCA takedowns for like generic pictures of food on the site. So there'll be like there'll be like a line about like bratwurst, and then somebody will find like a picture of a bratwurst and put it in, and we get a takedown for that like picture.
That's my bratwurst.
That's my stock image or whatever. So we've gotten some of that stuff. And you
respond quickly, and that's why the DMCA is there.
Yeah, and we get takedowns for sometimes someone will post in the forum or in like an explanation, someone will post like a link to some like download of a song, and that's a little bit hot. But in terms of like the lyrics and the stuff surrounding the lyrics, like artists and labels are seeing it as a way to just like promote the art.
So there's no fundamental problem there. Let's take it up the food chain a little bit. If somebody put up Twilight, the book, or a Harry Potter book, and started explaining some popular work of fiction, would they be able to, if they analyzed all 1,000 pages of a book, be able to put it up there under fair use or not?
So
and how do you start parsing that one? Because now we're getting into, is it fair to the author of that book? Right.
I mean, with something like that, when you're really dealing with like the thousands of pages of a work, like that's probably a bridge we're gonna have to cross. Like even from just a user interface perspective, right? Like right now, every song on the site, it's designed for songs, so it's just like one page, and so we'd have to have some kind of way of presenting this to the user, let alone something that's palatable to the author or the rights holder. So we're gonna come up with something that works for both. I think that like if authors of fantasy novels or editorials or whatever it is, if they have the same reaction that like musicians have had, I think they're going to be pretty excited about using the platform, and it's going to make everyone money, I think.
And when you get to video, now even more complex. We've had a lot of debate around fair use in movie clips. What are your thoughts on that? And annotating a movie clip?
Yeah, I mean, again, if you have the full movie running with a little commentary, like Mystery Science Theater 3000 style commentary or whatever it is, like in the sort of like bottom of the screen or something, like you could you could run into some problems that way. I mean, I think similarly with the long form text, like that's a little far afield from what we're thinking about now. But I think that like I don't know, But then again, with the movie, it could end up even being more transformative in a way. Because what if the explanation could be like instead of just, it could be words or something, but you could also have half of the screen devoted to like some other complicated thing going on where it was showing like, a series of pictures or whatever. And so like, you might get into some even more transformative stuff there. But like, again, it's the idea isn't to sort of say like, haha, a trick to watching a movie, just annotated, a trick to reading a book, just have it annotated. It's more like, this is this new thing, and how do you like make it work for everyone?
It's truly transformative work. I mean, it's truly becoming a derivative work. And you have to be able to criticize a work, and in order to criticize the work, you do need to be able to show the work. And so if it's a percentage, in the case of a song, it's only, X number of words, 300 words. In the case of a book, maybe doing a chapter or a section would be the workaround.
Yeah, and I mean, if suppose we talk to the author and they say, well, you can do 50 pages of this 500-page book or whatever, and then maybe we do that, and then the fans go nuts, and that changes everyone's mind about it a little bit. Like, I'm not trying to like force this on the world. Like, I think like it wasn't even something that I necessarily thought all the time was going to be this huge thing, because like as I said, we built it just for like ourselves, basically for fun. So like it was only after observing what happened and how obsessed everyone got that I sort of got on the tip of this is the bigger vision here. And so like I think that's the same way with other sort of genres and types of text, which is like get inside the whale, get an editor chat, like see what's going on here and how people are viewing this. And it's it's really the people who take your work the most seriously, who are obsessed with it, and you're going to want to like talk to them and hang out and make some verified explanations.
Yeah, chances are if you're trying to figure out the lyrics, you've either bought the album,
right,
or you may be inspired to buy some merch or go to a show afterwards. You're that much of a geek. They're probably going to want to have that person's email or the ability to market to them. So let's talk about annotating off of your site and if you're going to do one site, multiple sites. You have one site currently? Or
one
do you
site,
have,
yeah.
So now people are annotating the Bible on Rap Genius.
Right.
Which is kind of just awesome in and of itself.
Right.
But do you see that as becoming, okay, now we'll just have Bible Genius, and you'll have 50 sites, Poetry Genius, et cetera?
Sure.
Or do you see it as a tool like Third Voice, which we were talking about a little bit earlier, which was a tool in the late 90s, early 2000s, which let you post annotations across the web? So putting an annotation on the New York Times, putting an annotation on the Wikipedia.
Sure. So yeah, I think annotations across the web is definitely part of the big vision, but I think we're a ways away from that just because like I think, to really get this to work, you need like the community energy to be like focused and activated in the right way. Like you can't just let everyone go nuts, basically. And that's sort of like, one big reason I think a lot of previous annotation sort of startups haven't really gotten off the ground, which is just like you have to approach it from a community first perspective rather than just building some platform that like seems, appealing to like an engineer, basically. And so that's why we spent so much time on Rap, because we had to really get the community going. And so, the problem with putting explanations on other sites and allowing people to annotate from other sites is that it's harder to feel the love of the community and like talk to your friends who are also on Rap Genius if you're just on a site explaining. That said, it's definitely part of the plan. Like if you have a blog, and your stuff's getting explained on Rap Genius, or people are discussing on Rap Genius, you should be able to put a little JavaScript tag on your site and just pull those annotations in. And then, even farther down the road is probably the ability to annotate just by highlighting anything on the internet. In terms of like separate sites, it's a very challenging problem. You want some separation, right? Because you need these different communities to form. And so, it's funny because I was really influenced in a lot of ways on Rap Genius, but in this question in particular a lot by the Stack Overflow experience. And actually the first time I actually heard you podcast was on a very early episode of the Stack Overflow podcast.
Yeah.
Where you told Joel and Jeff, look, just for a couple $1,000, put a front page ad on the site, like just keep it lean or whatever. Yeah. And then all this crazy shit happened with them. So they obviously face a very similar situation, which is this format. That's great. This great platform applies to programmers on this site. What do you do? And so I think, they had a lot of good ideas in terms of like, you need the community to form. You need the community to have a spot to hang out. All the pride memes around like, this is like our logo, this is our like clan or whatever. So you want to separate it and have some separation of different sites, but you also don't want to go too far because you have 50 sites or something. And then it's kind of like, all right,
no critical mass.
What do I do? Where do I go? Do I post this in this thing or in the country thing or the other? So I think what there's going to end up being is there are going to be some sites that are some sort of categories that are separate. And so the ones that we're working on right now and going to launch probably in the next couple months, you got Stereo IQ and Poetry Brain. And so right now those are our umbrellas for like, indie
what would
rock,
stereo?
classic
Stereo
rock,
would be classic
like
rock.
Country is going to be in there, even though country might end up being, Country Brain is the sort of country side, but that's like, it's going to be in Stereo IQ for now, and we'll see what happens. Reggae lives in Rap Genius now. We got some traction with like Rap Genius contributors who wanted to, R&B, also like people in the community doing it. So like, and Poetry Brain is going to start with poetry and also literature. Law is going to be on there, but maybe law will splinter out. So the question is like, you want to have some sort of separation in sites, but then there's going to be some like genres
and then
that
there's
are living on.
And there's going to be natural threads. I mean, Allen Ginsberg, Bob Dylan, Deborah Harry and then Public Enemy and boom, and all of a sudden
it's very complicated. Like, what do you do with the Lady Gaga song that features Kendrick Lamar? It's just like mashup of genres. Like, it's a very difficult thing to say. Like, okay, let's just categorize everything into genres.
Taxonomies are
great
taxing,
idea.
Right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like everybody, the human brain wants to put everything into one system, but then emotionally we want to live in multiple systems. I mean, theoretically, we should have one giant restaurant that we all go to that has every single thing on the menu, but we don't. We want to go to a Chinese food place one night, and we want to go to
and that would be
Thai
called
place.
Diner in Williamsburg. Favorite restaurant. Shout out to Diner.
Right, exactly. Shout out to Diner. The first restaurant in Williamsburg, I think. So then maybe some portal annotated.com or something just to pull a domain out of the sky. If you could get like an amazing domain
for
like
hundreds
that.
of thousands of dollars,
Yes.
maybe we could.
Actually, I'm thinking more stock.
That's a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I think I would rather have stock. Just some destination site like the Wikipedia where all the annotations in the world could live.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because like there's also the question of like what's better for consumers versus the producers, right? And so like from a consumer standpoint, like I think simplicity is very important and fewer destinations is good for the consumer. But then for the producer, stuff like community vibes and pride and all this stuff becomes more important. Then you want to split it. And so like, a big question when you're making this decision is how you weigh the various like utilities here. And our basic philosophy is to focus 100% on the producer. So if you are like on the site and you're writing content, like you are our guy, like we're going to like hook you up basically. And so, that might mean that the consumption experience takes a little bit of a hit, but we're basically fine with that because the people who are writing like the good content are the people who we really need to please. So that might distort things a little bit in terms of the priorities.
And when you raise this much money, and you're a first-time entrepreneur, how do you think about deploying it? I mean, it's kind of a mind-blowing experience to go from nothing in the bank account to hundreds of thousands of dollars and then to $15 million. And do you sometimes look at that bank account and sit there with your team of co-founders and just say, how do we deploy this? And then how do you have that discussion of, should we buy a Super Bowl commercial? Should we pay the contributors or not? Should we pay the top contributors? How do you think about deploying such a large amount of capital intelligently?
Yeah, well, it's just like what problems we have and what we're trying to solve. So, the biggest problem is basically like, all the stuff we've been talking, separate sites, like annotations on another site, like iPhone app, like all this kind of stuff, which people are bothering us about. People love saying Rap app, when's Rap Genius getting an app? And we're always tweeting at them soon, but it's essentially the problems we have are mostly engineering problems in the sense that we just need to build the product for all this stuff. So, and that's kind of a blessing too, because it's just very hard to spend a lot of money fast on good engineers because good engineers are very hard to find. So basically,
you're naturally throttled.
Yeah, it's extremely throttled.
Hard to make big mistakes.
And so our approach basically has been to try to, be very picky, but then hook people up like Major. So like I think a lot of companies, they make the mistake of hiring a lot of people and having the people not be as amazing and also not paying or treating the people as well as they should. So I want to hire fewer people, pay them a lot, and then hook them up in terms of like an office. Like I'm very sort of like, I was very influenced by Joel Spolsky on like the sort of open seating problems. Like I'm a big
you like the
proponent
closed seating.
Yeah, I like the closed seating. Private offices is obviously a tricky thing to do, but like 2-3 person offices, just like where you can concentrate, keep it nice, like pay you a lot. We are hiring, we pay a lot. So,
So you want to overpay, keep the team small, and give people massive perks and hire in a certain genre and not be big open office space.
Right.
Madness that is characterized as big open communication. But you don't worry about the open communication that much because you're doing, what is almost a small technical challenge, but a big community scale challenge.
Yeah, there's...
You have the opposite of most tech companies.
Yeah, there's a lot of tech stuff. I mean,
Is there?
it's...
making an iPhone app,
it's...
you're
it's
building the Wikipedia in 2012. It's not that technically difficult,
but
is
then
it?
there's also there's a certain... Like the tooth runs very deep in terms of like, so if you think about like Rap IQ, for example, right? So that's like our version of Stack Overflow's reputation, so like we really jacked a lot from them. I really love those guys. So Rap IQ, right? You get Rap IQ for earning good explanations. And that is something that very few people in the world so far have ever experienced, tens of thousands versus tens of millions, right? Tens of millions of people come to the site, tens of thousands of people have ever earned Rap IQ. And that's a pretty complicated technical challenge, like doing like scores in points in such a way that you can keep it real time and award it for a variety of different things and, leaderboards and all this kind of stuff. And like, building like activity stream type stuff. So like you can see exactly what happened to your explanations. Like if you upvoted me or you left a suggestion, maybe I want to like take your suggestion. Like all of this stuff is like extremely challenging. Like the same sort of challenges that like, would face like sort of a more generic social network or Stack Overflow
or a search engine.
But it's targeted at a smaller group of people. And so like if you're an outsider coming to Rap Genius, like what you're going to see like, God, like this site looks a little like could use a design refresh.
Yeah.
And maybe smooth out the user interface. But God, the content is really good. And so like the way the content gets good is by providing the tools to the people who are writing it. So it's like kind of counterintuitive a little bit.
Yeah, the user experience is this 10% of the iceberg, but the 90% is really hard. who gets to have the top level annotation, the top level explanation of a lyric? How do you determine that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. From the beginning of this site, the question was, and we had our inspirations, like Wikipedia, Urban Dictionary, and so Stack Overflow, obviously, and so a lot of these sites, like Stack Overflow and Urban Dictionary, they let you have a lot of different answers.
Multi-answer.
Right? And the thing is, the voted to the top thing is on the top. And from the beginning, I didn't like that approach. Like, what I think is best for the user is there for just be one thing that represents the best amalgamation of the minds on the internet. And so that's the way it works with Rap Genius. And so there's a fairly sort of intricate workflow where one person can write an explanation. And then if you're an editor, you can just come edit it. But if you're not an editor, you can write a suggestion on the explanation. And that's can be an alternate explanation or something else. And then as that suggestion gets upvotes and gets sort of taken in by the community and other editors, that suggestion can get integrated into the final explanation. So there's one final explanation, but you can see at any point who wrote what percentage of it.
Similar to Quora, in that Quora now has that little wiki box.
Suggested edits stuff.
Yeah, suggested edits on the answers. The answers get voted up and down, but then they had that box up top, which was the real answer or the best. But it didn't work.
Summary thing or
Yeah,
whatever.
nobody really wanted to do the summary. It was that was sort of like a baseball that dropped between two outfielders.
Right.
Well, who the hell's going to
wants
write
the
this? Because nobody's name is on it.
Right. And so the way we've sort of solved that is you can click the authors button and then you can see, and this was kind of a hard technical challenge. If you have ideas on this, you might want to work at Rap Genius, where you can see okay, you wrote 30%, I wrote 10%, this other guy wrote 2%, maybe he fixed a comma or whatever. So you sort of get this one document and then you can see all the people responsible for how much. And then when you vote, if you vote on the explanation, the people get points in proportion to how much they wrote. So if I wrote 70%, I get 70% of the voting points. And then how many points your vote is worth depends on how much Rap IQ you have. So It all feeds into itself. It's crazy.
Almost seems like we're spending time on analyzing rap lyrics when this amount of development and intentionality could cure cancer.
Yeah, well,
do you ever think that
yeah.
You're putting this incredible thoughtfulness into analyzing lyrics, and is this the best use of your time?
Well, I mean, music is very important to, just people, and what I've experienced, talking to people about the site, and obviously, talking to artists, trying to sort of get them excited about the platform and stuff, music runs pretty deep in terms of, people's, priorities and emotions and stuff. So, obviously I'm excited by the more sort of straightforward educational and betterment of society, aspects of, analyzing, laws and literature and all this kind of stuff. But I think, lyrics, if you can, help someone form a deeper connection with their favorite artist, that's a pretty good thing to do as well. So
yeah, and there's a lot of joy in art.
Yeah,
and part of the reason why people want to cure cancer is so they can enjoy more art and create more.
Exactly.
And it's not an either or, is it? I mean, it's an and. We live in a time of massive abundance, and so what next for the company? I mean, you hit this crazy milestone of raising a ton of money and having the best venture capitalists in the world. I mean, Andreessen Horowitz is a juggernaut now, just hiring Chris Dixon from New York to be the 7th general partner. How did you get Andreessen Horowitz?
Oof.
I mean, I know Ben starts every blog post with rap lyrics, which for a 40-year-old bald white guy, venture capitalist, to do that is just so counterintuitive and brilliant. But was that the connection? Was it Ben Horowitz's love of rap?
Yeah, well, it originally started, he came to talk at Y Combinator, was
right.
the original thing, and so we listened to his whole, and at that point, I had no idea who anyone was, basically, so I listened to his story, and it was a cool story, the whole, Loud Cloud, sort of craziness and IPO and whatever, and I remember liking the story, and of course, I knew at the time enough, I Googled him before, and I saw, his blog, and I'd read some stuff, and so I knew about the rap thing, so we went up to him, and we were yo, Ben, we love your blog, can you link to us for the lyrics on your blog, because, he would put the little quote, but then, he would have a Groove Shark player for the song, but then the lyrics, where do you get the lyrics? So what we thought was let's get some SEO juice, wherever you can get it, And so we pushed on him to link the lyrics, and then, he sort of never did, and we sort of forgot about it for a while because we sort of felt it would be a little on the nose for us to really pursue him super hard, because you like rap, so you're gonna like us, and that's so we wanted to play it a little cool, but so then one day I was randomly on his blog and I saw that he had linked the lyrics after months and months later, and so I saw that and I freaked out because SEO juice and big ups from Ben, and so Mopboat hit him up and interviewed him for the site, and that was just a brilliant move to both get to know him and to just throw a a bizarre like monkey wrench into anyone looking at the site, because like, at that point we were very stealth about like Y Combinator investment, and so now we have this big Ben Horowitz interview on the site, and so you're going to think like, whoa, they must be messing around with VC, which was true, but not because of that. We weren't messing with Ben at that time. But so we interviewed him, we got to know him, and it's just a long process of basically getting to know him, talking to him, like him realizing that we had like the big vision, and also us realizing that he has like, because like I feel like Ben, Ben's haters can kind of be like, oh, like, he's gimmicky, trying to do this lyrics thing. Like, how much does he really know about rap? How much does he really know about real shit? And, he knows a lot about rap, and like, and also like Ben is just a really deep thinker about like the sort of emotional side of like, running a business or whatever, and
managing your own psychology.
Yeah,
He's had
exactly.
a number of great blog posts about just how emotionally scarring and brutal trying to bring one of these sites to critical mass and running it and building a team can be.
And so that was a big selling point.
That
for me,
resonated
honestly.
with you,
like,
huh?
Yeah, because like, I'm sort of the programmer guy, right? So I'm doing a lot of technology, and just like the human factors are just way more important and difficult to figure out than the technology. And also watching my Y Combinator peers, because like there were a lot of teams there who I thought were great. And then
perhaps even better technically.
Perhaps even better. Sure, yeah. I mean, of course, getting to Y
they had to be,
Combinator.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, getting to Y Combinator, I was quite like, who are all these guys? Like we.
Well, and you're a
had this,
Yale
like,
guy, and
product
obviously you
project,
got all the hang-ups about Harvard.
Yeah, well, yeah. But we were at Harvard actually yesterday. Is the truth. We were teaching a French class at Harvard. I can talk about that too. But so we were at Y Combinator.
Well, I'm sorry, teaching a French class how?
Oh, so we were there. This was a sort of a senior French literature seminar that was using Rap Genius to analyze Baudelaire. So, we had a couple poems, the students made accounts, they did explanations, and then we came to sort of like show them how to like add links and pics to them, basically, and just teach them about the platform and stuff. And like, it's kind of a magical
Harvard kids
thing.
didn't get it, right?
They were down.
They're a
They
little
like
slow.
jokes. I mean, Mahmoud led the class because he's got the most fluent like French, and he's just cracking jokes. It takes about 20 minutes to warm up, and then he's amazing. And then, so he was, and people got it. It's a really cool thing because it's like you get to get the word out, but then also these poems are up there. So if you're interested in, Le Chat or whatever the poem is, you can go and read it, and it's analyzed by Harvard kids. So it's cool that you only have to do it once with this stuff.
So you were saying about the Y Combinator, smart kids with projects,
right? Okay, so then you
some of those are hitting walls.
Well, it's not just hitting walls; it's just the interpersonal stuff. Like you can have two guys, and you think they're super, super smart individually, and they're
Rock
a great
stars.
team, and they look great from the outside, and then you hear they maybe broke up or whatever, and they broke up because they couldn't make it work on a personal level. Like it's very,
Jealousy,
very stressful,
power,
all this kind of stuff. And
stress.
so, I think it's just very important from your own perspective. Like I am just sitting here, just me and no other people, and I'm trying not to go crazy. And when you're talking to your friends and like, your co-founders, you got to like hug and like, communicate a lot, and I feel like Ben really feels that, and he's obviously been there, so I think that's like that was definitely a big like part of why we vibe with him so hard.
No founder unity. Yeah, there's just no product, no team, game over. And so where are you guys based?
We are in Williamsburg.
Yeah,
we are in Williamsburg. Yeah, we right now we are working out of a couple of apartments, and hopefully we're going to upgrade soon to a real office. But that's
save some money.
Well, I wouldn't say it's
save
not
some
cheaper.
money,
I
and
wouldn't
then
say it's cheaper. The apartments
crazy.
are expensive.
The apartments are expensive, and so you're gonna keep the company in Brooklyn, or you think you're gonna go to Manhattan?
I want to keep it in Brooklyn. I think. Yeah.
I'm from Brooklyn.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Best side, do or die.
Yeah.
Nets. I mean, Brooklyn is amazing. It's a lot of startups over there now, MakerBot, et cetera.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I think Williamsburg's a great spot too. Like Dumbo is more traditionally like the Etsy spot and so forth. And I like Dumbo a lot, but I think Williamsburg is a great place to start a company too. It's like a little more chilled out. You can kind of breathe a little more, but there's still some energy and excitement going on.
It's easier to recruit, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Brooklyn makes it a little easier actually. Like we've done some informal stuff, like where we'll try putting Brooklyn in the title on the Hacker News post or not, and see what. And Brooklyn, I think, is attractive, especially to the people who ended up working here. They all cite Brooklyn as a big selling point.
Rents are cheaper, food's better art scene.
Yeah, less crazy. Yeah. Also, there's a certain like more refined, like you're more likely to get someone who has a little more of a refined like taste about stuff if they're like, all right, like I did the Manhattan, I'm over. I want a little more subtlety and nuance, and so that's why I like people like Brooklyn.
Listen, I wish you all the success in the world with the site. It's something I've always like dreamed about doing. As I told you earlier, I bought the domain name Annotated, I don't know, maybe in 2001 or 2002 for $5,000 I paid for it, something in that range. God. well, back then domains were cheap because nobody thought the internet would ever be successful. And I was like, I want to do third voice over again because the world needs to be able to, intelligent people at least, not most people, but just the intelligent people should be able to comment on a New York Times story or whatever and say, hey, this is BS. And I bought inside.com essentially for that, like same sort of gestalt, which is to help people understand the world a little bit better. And there's just too much noise and not enough signal. But you should really look into third voice. That was a fascinating moment in time because right now, since you're doing it on your site, nobody is going to care that much. Maybe the lyric holder will complain here, or the guy with the bratwurst or whatever. Weird. But once you start commenting on another person's site with your Chrome toolbar or whatever, however you execute it, then people get a little touchy. And who gets to comment? That's when you know.
I can't wait because that means people care.
Absolutely.
I want to see people get
really disruptive. Hey, Tom Lehman, I pronounced it correct, yeah?
Yeah,
Lehman.
Perfect.
Good luck with Rap Genius. I'm assuming first name at rapgenius.com might go to you.
That's the best thing to do. Yeah, hit me up about some Ruby stuff, JavaScript, iPhone, whatever. Like if you got something impressive, hit me up. We'll talk.
Great salary, Office.
Benny's, Seamless Web, whatever. It's nothing.
iPhone, Mini, iPad Mini.
We pay your phone bill.
Pay your phone bill. iPad Mini. Maybe.
Yeah, we could talk. We'll talk.
Talk iPad Mini.
Yeah,
All right, listen, great success with the site. It's off to a great start. And if you are looking to have a great life, living in Brooklyn is a good start. And working for a killer startup with passionate founders who have deep pockets and are thinking long-term for the brand, that's other things that are also very virtuous when you pick the company to work for. So everybody who is brilliant, email Tom at Rap Genius. We'll see you next time on This Week in Startups.
Thanks so much.